Hi, welcome back. This is week 9, video number 2. In this video, we're going to talk about outlining. So I'm going to assume that you've gone ahead and you now have a working thesis statement that identifies your topic, your specific claim about that topic, and then your different variables. In this video, we're going to talk about outlining. And outlining is something that a lot of people think is a waste of time. I will tell you a secret. For a very long time, when I was in high school and at the beginning of my post-secondary career, I was one of these people that thought outlining was a huge waste of time. I would come up with a thesis statement and then I just wanted to get going. I wanted to jump right into writing the rough draft and getting the essay done. I then would get my essays back, and one of the complaints about them would be that they weren't organized or that they weren't structured. And I decided I wanted to improve my writing. So I took a look at what I had written and I realized that I went off on tangents a lot. So I had so many ideas and I was all excited about the topic that, was sort of all over the place, right? My writing wasn't very focused. It didn't have any kind of structure to it. And the advice I was given was make sure that you have an outline. Now, years later, I'm repeating this same advice to you. So I'm passing it down the generations. An outline is really, really important. And I think the best way to think about it is that it operates like a skeleton. So if you think about your body, right, your skeleton is what provides your body structure. If somebody were to suck all of the bones out of your body, you'd just be a little pile of skin and fat and organs. All of this stuff hangs on your skeleton, and that's what actually gives your body structure and makes your body work. The thing is, we don't actually see our skeletons, right? So our skeletons are covered up with, skin and fat and muscle and all of these different components. The outline's the same thing. Nobody will actually see it, right? But its presence is there, is what's going to provide the structure and the kind of backbone, right, to your essay. So it's very, very important. It keeps you organized, it keeps you structured, and it makes sure that you don't go off in 50 million different directions as you're writing so that you end up with something that's just like a little pile of skin and a little pile of fat. You want something that's solid and that works like a body. There's various ways to do outlining, and people will find that they like different techniques versus others. The readings that I asked you to complete last week show you one way, okay? And that's a way, it's a numerical way. So maybe if you're like a precise mathematical type person, you might like that way. You can also do it with point form. It really doesn't matter, whatever works for you, okay? So however you build it up. But no matter what style you choose, it should be in point form, except for your thesis, your topic sentences, and your closing remark. And we'll go over those different things in a couple of minutes. But what you don't want to do is start writing full sentences because then you're into drafting. Okay? Essentially, what you're doing is you're building a foundation of the essay, or you're writing the essay without actually writing the essay, without actually writing full sentences. You're just mapping it out and building the skeleton in point form. Then you're going to take that and you're going to write from that. And that's what's going to make sure that you adhere to structure. So there's different parts to an outline. For your introduction, you want to make sure that you have your working thesis statement written down, and you've already accomplished that task if you followed along with the last video and created a thesis statement. For each body paragraph that you're going to write for the essay, you want to have a topic sentence written for each paragraph. You want to include the detail that you're going to use in point form only, okay? You also want to make sure that you keep track of your in-text citations. So as you're putting in stuff, as you're putting in your ideas in point form, make sure that beside them, you write in your in-text citation. This will make things much easier when it comes to writing, because then you won't have to go back and flip through your research. You'll have the correct in-text citation right in your outline, and you'll be able to include it when you're drafting. The last part of your outline should include your conclusion. And here you want to have what's called what I like to call, I should say, your final thought, okay, written down. So the way that you're going to actually close your outline. Let's take a look at what an outline actually looks like, okay? Because I think it's always better to work from a model. And I'm going to put an outline example up under course documents. I'm just going to switch now and pull up the file here on the screen for you. But I will give this to you as, whoops, and I pulled up the wrong file. Here we go. This is a sample outline that somebody wrote for a very serious condition called Blah syndrome. And I'm sure many of you, I know I suffer from Blah syndrome. I'm sure many of you also at this point in the term are suffering from Blah syndrome. So this person was looking at a syndrome. They identified the different variables that they were going to talk about. They've come up with a thesis statement. Now they're actually outlining. And the first thing that they do is to come up with a working essay title. This is, again, really important because it helps your focus. You can change this title later, but having a really basic title at the outlining stage really helps direct your thought. So they've used a really simple and basic working essay title. They've called it Symptoms of Blah Syndrome. Okay, they may change it later. They may keep it the same, right? Doesn't matter. It's just an outline. They then include their working thesis statement. And I call it a working thesis statement because, again, remember, you're not marrying it. We're just at the outline stage. You can change it a little bit later. And here's their thesis statement. Although Blah syndrome can manifest in a number of different ways, 3 key symptoms are present in every case. So there's my X, there's my Y, my specific claim. 3 key symptoms are present in every case. Here come my variables. An intense craving for chocolate, A. The inability to get off the couch, B. And then C, the overconsumption of refined carbohydrates. Then what you do is you take each of your variables and you move into outlining a paragraph for each variable that you're going to talk about. This person happens to have 3. As I said, you're going to have probably somewhere between 3 and 5, okay, depending on your topic and what you found. And then for each variable, you're going to outline out a paragraph. The first thing you want to come up with is a topic sentence. And the topic sentence, right, is almost like a little mini thesis statement. So think of a topic sentence as a simple sentence that identifies for the reader what a particular paragraph is going to be about. Okay, so it's literally what it's named. It's a sentence announcing the topic of the paragraph. It can be something basic, like an insatiable craving for chocolate is a universal symptom of blah. The point I want to make here, okay, is that variable A is a symptom. Okay, that basic. Okay, this really helps the reader and it keeps you organized. Then I'm going to go into the detail. Okay, and the detail is what I'm going to pull from my research. So I'm going to flip through and I'm going to find all of the different mentions about the craving for chocolate. And I'm going to include all of that information in point form. So this person found a lot of, well, not a lot, I guess 5 points that could be made about that craving for chocolate. Okay, so take a look at the first one. Those with blah consume 70% of the world's chocolate supply. Then they have Peterson, 2014, their in-text citation. Can include cravings for chocolate blends. If sufferers do not get a chocolate infusion, 40% will die within 20 hours of the craving's onset. Chocolate temporarily relieves sense of depression and exhaustion. Craving is stronger than cravings for heroin, nicotine, and other street drugs. And you'll see, if you look at the APA in-text citations, they pulled this from different pieces of research. Okay, so we're not going article by article or chapter by chapter or source by source here. What we're doing is we're pulling the ideas from all those different sources and now putting them together in a little bunch, okay, so that we're getting detail from different pieces of research. If you find as you're working that you're not finding enough information in what you've already pulled for your research file, you can at the outline stage do a bit more research and add some stuff in, okay? But be careful if you do that, because you can go down the rabbit hole of never finishing your research. So you can add a bit more in. Feel free to add a bit more in if you need to sort of, round it out or sort of more fully include detail, but don't go nuts, okay? Because again, you'll find that you end up going back to the beginning and doing all sorts of research. You've already gone through that stage, right? So don't go crazy. And again, remember, if you're adding in research, you want to stick to library materials. So you don't want to look at external web stuff. You want to follow this pattern for each of the planned body paragraphs that you'll have. So again, that goes back to the number of variables. I have 3 variables here. So if I were to really fully do this outline, I'd do the outlining for paragraph number 2 and the outlining for body paragraph number 3 as well. Okay, depending on, again, how many paragraphs or how many variables you're going to talk about, you want to outline each of those paragraphs. Okay, this is the heavy lifting. So this takes a bit of time because you got to flip through the research. You got to look at, different things maybe that you've highlighted. Take a look at your summaries, because your summaries can also help in terms of pulling information from them. This is really mapping out or skeletonizing the essay. Once you've actually completed the body of your essay, then the last thing, the outline, I shouldn't say of your essay, because you're not writing the essay yet, you're just outlining. The last thing you want to move on to is coming up with a memorable or a concluding statement for your paper. The last sentence of any paper, I think, honestly, is the hardest thing to write. So I always like to plan for it in the outline. It also allows you to sort of close the book and say, okay, I'm done, right? I'm done this outline. I have the essay now all sort of laid out in point form. The memorable or concluding statement, or the final thought, whatever you want to call it, is going to be the last statement that you make about your particular topic. And this is going to sound funny, but I think it's one of the best ways to think about it. If you ever watch Jerry Springer, which I'm sure everybody has watched at least one time, even if you don't want to admit it, at the end of the show, Jerry Springer comes out and he gives what he calls his final thought. Okay, so he's had all sorts of craziness all over the show, right? Or even like you think about any of these talk shows, they have all sorts of nutty things going on. And then at the end, the host comes out and says something to try to wrap everything up. And they usually try to say something really philosophical or really deep, okay, at the end. Think of your memorable or concluding statement this way. This is going to be your opportunity to make the final statement on the topic. It can be deep, it can be philosophical, okay, but it gives the reader the indication that you're bringing the discussion of this topic to a close. You can look online. There's lots of, hints or ideas about how to write a concluding statement for an essay, right? And you can try some of those techniques if you like. But generally, I find just saying to yourself, okay, if I were to end the conversation on this, how would I end it? Allows you to come up with a really good, memorable, or concluding statement. So in this example, right, the person has written, while blah syndrome is a serious condition that Canadians must watch for, most patients with correct guidance and support from their healthcare team can manage their symptoms. And you can even hear as I'm reading that out, this does give the impression, okay, that everything is coming to a close and things are over. In terms of doing your outline, just some basic advice. Look at the example. Also, to cut yourself some slack. Remember, it's just an outline. Okay, so you're just trying ideas out right now. you're going to be able to make changes if you want. There's no rule that says that you're necessarily going to have to stick to this when you write your essay. You'll be able to make little changes here and there if you want. So you're not under the gun in any way. I think pulling the anxiety out of the outlining process is really important. When we're anxious or we're trying to think too many steps ahead when we're writing, that can bring out writer's block where you just sit and you can't think of like how to begin or what to write. Cut yourself some slack. Say, okay, this is step number 1. Right? All I'm doing here is outlining. All I'm doing is point form. If you take any kind of anxiety that you might have about writing out of the equation, it's going to make the process a lot simpler. Okay. So again, remember, it doesn't need to be perfect. It's just a skeleton, right? The only people that are going to see it are you and me, right? So it's not like we're producing it for other people to read and take a look at. It's just a plan. In the next video, I'm going to go over the instructions for our outline. You're going to spend the rest of your time this week actually working through the outline and preparing it for submission. I'll talk to you in the next video.